Hello, and welcome back to Desire Dialogues. It's your girl, Sex Coach Lauren. Welcome back, dear gentle listeners. All right, is it normal to struggle with orgasm? That is one of the most common questions people ask. Why can't I orgasm? Or maybe, why does it take me so long? Or why is it easy by myself, but I find it harder when I'm with a partner, right? Why does everyone else seem to have this figured out except me? And underneath all of those questions is often a much deeper fear that comes up. That's what's wrong with me. Nothing. Nothing's wrong with you. Because reaching orgasm and having difficulty with that is increasingly and incredibly common. All right, let me hit you with some stats. So in fact, studies estimate that up to half of women report difficulty reaching orgasm with a partner. And 10 and 15% of women report never having experienced an orgasm. And that's from Medline. So if you ever wondered, you're the only one, like, is it just me? You're not the only one. Not even close. All right, we were sold this myth, right? Like, so most of us were given a pretty terrible sex education. And if we're being honest, movies don't help. Porn didn't help. Romance novels didn't help, because we absorbed this idea that orgasm should be bing, bang, boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, happen every time. They're easy. They're automatic. They're simultaneously. And it's like, no. And it's like it's some kind of finish line. And then if it doesn't happen, well, maybe you're broken. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe your body doesn't work right. Maybe you're just, air quote, one of those people. But orgasm is not a performance review. It's not a grade. And it's certainly not proof of whether you're good at sex, right? Your body is not a machine, right? So, like, here is what I wish every adult knew, and which is why I do what I do. Orgasms are not just physical, they're hormonal, they're neurological, relational, they're also emotional, and it's influenced by a lot of things, right? Trauma, body image, you got some shame in there, you're feeling a bit pressured, medication, are you stressed out, relationship dynamics, are you pissed off about a fight you had last month, right? Or were you rejected by your partner 3 years ago and now things are just really different? It's like, if you're struggling, that doesn't mean your body failed. It's really part of a very complex system. All right, let's talk about the orgasm gap. All right, so here's something really fascinating. Researchers have found consistently that men experience orgasm during partnered sex much more frequently than women. I'm not surprised to hear that. You may not be either, but if you are, I'm really glad to have given you this information. Men's orgasm rates are around 70 to 85%, and then women's are closer to 46 to 58%. And that's important, because this isn't about individual women failing. It's about understanding that the way that we have culturally defined sex may not actually center around female pleasure. And that's a completely different conversation, right? Penetration alone isn't enough for most women, all right? Here's another thing we were never taught, right? About 3 out of 4 women do not orgasm from vaginal penetration alone. That's from Sexual Health. So read that again. 3 out of 4. Or hear that again, I should say. Not because they're broken or they're difficult or they're doing anything wrong, but because bodies are different. And for women, clitoral stimulation is essential. All right, so 70 to 80% of clitoris owners require direct clitoral stimulation to achieve orgasm. All right, the clitoris is the main pleasure center. All right, it is not there for any other purpose except to serve you pleasure. It has absolutely no reproductive purpose, right? So it could just be that, you don't have the right stimulation, which is why toys come in so handy. They're helpful little tools, and it saves you from carpal tunnel, right? So you're not like tickling the skittle, doing manual. And it's just, it doesn't mean that, the problem is your body. It could be the technique. It could be the positioning. It could be the type of stimulation. So, my friends, pressure is actually the enemy of pleasure. So when you are so concerned about making it happen, really tricky, right? Like, have you ever noticed like that the harder you try to fall asleep, the harder it becomes to fall asleep? Or the more desperately you try to remember that person's name, the more it disappears. And orgasm is going to work very similar to this, because orgasms thrive in presence, curiosity, relaxation, and a lot of safety, right? And pressure creates the complete opposite. Pressure is saying to you in your brain, am I taking too long? Are they getting bored? Why isn't this happening? I should be there by now. And then suddenly you're no longer experiencing, you're monitoring. And pleasure lives in sensation, not self-surveillance. So sometimes we chase the wrong goal, right? I'm thinking like one of the biggest mistakes we've made culturally is turning orgasm into the primary purpose of sex. And like, as though sex without an orgasm somewhat failed, right? Imagine applying that logic to like dinner with your friends. You'd say, well, nobody had dessert, so I guess this whole evening was a fucking waste of time. No, of course not. Because experiences can still be meaningful. They can still be pleasurable, connecting and enjoying, right? Without ending in fireworks every single time. So the things that are going to help, not pressure, not trying harder, not blaming yourself, but slowing down, understanding your own body, maybe some solo exploration to feel like, all right, this is how I like to be touched on my clitoris. And then do that with a partner, right? When you feel safe, emotionally safe, especially by ourselves. That's why masturbation is so beautiful, right? But it's really about giving yourself permission to learn. Nobody expects someone to play the piano beautifully without practice, right? Yet somehow we're supposed to know everything about our bodies without ever being taught, right? It doesn't work that way. So maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just human, right? Sometimes the problem isn't orgasm. It's shame. It's anxiety. It's body image. It's exhaustion. It's grief. It's hormones. And then sometimes it's simply that you spent years believing that you're supposed to function like everyone else, or function like the way you've been told, when your body's been asking for something different this entire time. So, if this is something you've struggled with, I want you to hear me. You're not failing. You're not behind. You're not defective, and you're absolutely not alone. Pleasure isn't a test. Orgasm isn't a measure of your worth. It's an experience. And you know, experiences are allowed to be learned. There is no time limit on that. So remember, your body isn't broken. Your questions aren't weird. And you're definitely not the only one wondering these things. Because most of us never received sex education for adults or pleasure education. So until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate with yourself, and remember that pleasure is your birthright. And if you've ever found yourself wondering, like, is this normal? And why did my desire become so complicated? I created a free resource to help you understand yourself a little better. The goal isn't to force yourself to be different, but to be curious about how you work. So you can find a link in the show notes about the desire freebie you got there. So my friends, be well. If this helped you, share it with a friend. Give it a rate, give it a review, subscribe for more, and I will see you next time. Remember, my friends, pleasure is your birthright. You don't have to earn it.